Hello, I'm Damian Radcliffe and I'm an Honorary Research Fellow here at the Cardiff School of Journalism. In this talk I'm going to be looking at sustainability, which is a key issue for many hyperlocal and community media producers, and not necessarily one that perhaps gets looked at with the level of sophistication and nuances that perhaps it should. So here are some ideas that will hopefully influence your thinking in this space, whether you are new to the arena or whether you've been a hyperlocal practitioner and community journalist for some time. Clearly for many people the biggest issue in this space is around how they make it pay. So that for a lot of people is the number one topic in terms of sustainability, attracting the kind of levels of income that they want in order to make sure that their sites continue to be sustained and indeed potentially grow. Here are some examples of different sites from the UK who have managed to successfully do this, and I'd recommend having a look at each of them. They all deploy slightly different business models, so will all give you different insights into the ways in which you might be able to make this work for you. What those examples earlier show is that there is no one-size-fits-all solution. The model that you come up with for your community website may well be completely different from that of your neighbours and other people on this course, and that's absolutely fine. So don't think there's a particular cookie cutter model for making this work. There isn't. It will be something that is as unique to this space as you are. Here are some examples of types of income sources that you might want to consider from some of the examples that I cited earlier and a few others. So it covers everything from kind of online advertising, printed materials, be they newspapers and what's on guides, and then a number of practitioners we've also seen use their site as an opportunity to promote their wares and services more generally, so that act as a consultant either in the social media space or by providing copywriting and other such skills. Here are a few further alternatives from a number of other publications, including ebooks, property supplements, and so forth. If you want to try and attract large-scale funding for your site, or perhaps money to try and do something different, then trusts and foundations may be one way to do that. These are some UK examples, but from wherever you are in the world you may well find examples of other organisations and entities who are happy to provide support for some of the kind of innovative, entrepreneurial things that people like you are doing. You might also want to consider approaching local councils, local government and other public bodies who in turn may have pots of money available to support grassroots journalism and community engagement activities such as those that you're producing or looking to produce. However, one issue here that you may need to consider and give some thought to is whether this is an appropriate source of funding for you. Now, some publishers will feel that it's perfectly fine and they're happy to take money from pretty much anybody, and that includes local government bodies as a part of that mix. Others feel that if one of their roles is to try and hold local authority to account, then potentially there might be some tension between taking funding from a body that you might also be criticising through some of your news and journalistic work or through campaigns that you're running. So, and again, there's no one-size-fits-all solution for this. You'll have to determine which of those remedies is right for you. Now, in the second part of this quick talk, I want to touch on the fact that sustainability is not just about money, and too often I think that this is something that people tend to overlook. So one of the things that we've seen across the board is that particularly once publishers are up and running and perhaps have been doing this for some time, other considerations start to come into the mix. It's not all just about the cash. Sustaining momentum is particularly important. As you'll find, once you launch a site and if you've been operating it for some time, it can be hard to keep going and to maintain the kind of levels of commitment and enthusiasm and energy that perhaps you had at the beginning, and that's inevitable. So finding ways to be able to sustain the momentum is really important. One obvious way to do that is that you don't have to be a one-man band. You can find other people from amongst your readership, amongst your friends and peers, or people you don't know who you can reach out to and find online and indeed offline who are very happy to help. And they may have particular skills and interests that it could be relevant to you. They might be a designer or a coder, somebody who's passionate about local sports or local arts, subjects that perhaps you're not so interested in but you think your audience might be. So don't be shy about asking others for help. Often we found in the past that if people are asked, then they're very happy to participate. You just have to make that ask in the first instance. how you decide to frame your site is also a really key factor in terms of sustainability. One of the things that's been really interesting when looking at this space over the last couple of years has been to see the resurgence and resilience of forums. They're quite an old-fashioned way for communities to come together and talk in many respects, yet at the same time they've been immensely popular for well over a decade, and we do see new forums also coming online. And one of the beauties for you as a publisher is that often you don't have to do a great deal other than kind of create this space for people to then talk, share news and discuss things amongst one another, and actually the impact of that on your personal time can potentially be quite small. Or you can be very actively and heavily involved, in which case the involvement will be just as much as if you were running a WordPress site or any other kind of hyperlocal or community entity, which involves a lot more editorial. But have a think about your business model both from the beginning and also as you go along to see whether that factors into that mix considerations around sustainability, particularly in terms of your time, your commitment and your energy. I'd also say, as a flip side to that, also always give some thought to what might happen if your circumstances change. It could be that you start a family, you move to a new job, you relocate to a different part of the world. All these kinds of considerations can have an impact on your site. And what we've seen as a result of those kind of real life interventions is that different sites respond to them in different ways. Some, like SR2 blog up in Sunderland, shut when its creator moved on and took up a job in mainstream media. Others that have been very successful, like Pits and Pots in Stoke-on-Trent, got mothballed. The site is still there, but hasn't had any new content on it for some time. And then another site in Birmingham in England, when the founder moved on and relocated, somebody else picked up that site. And we have seen a number of examples of that across the UK and elsewhere, where a member of the community who'd been involved at an earlier point continued to act as the publisher when the original editor and founder decided to move on. So it's worth having at the back of your mind thoughts about whether you want your site to continue without you, and if so, how you might best try and set that up well in advance. So finally, I just want to sort of recap the key points here in terms of sustainability. Clearly, income sources are a huge dimension to this, and this is the one that you're probably all already thinking about, but don't forget the human angle to that too. It's also massively important if you want to be sustainable in the long term to think about how the site might be able to operate without you, or indeed how you can bring other people on board to broaden the range of content that you offer, the types of services that you cover and provide, and other kinds of such considerations that will factor into your business plan. Good luck. If you want to know more about some of the issues that have been raised during the course of this presentation, have a look at my website, and you'll find links to reports, interviews with publishers from across the UK and elsewhere, and hopefully get further ideas about how you can make your site sustainable. Thanks for listening.